Good afternoon. It said to never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. This room is a testament to the truth and power of that statement and to the undeniable impact of the winners of this year's Ned Gramlich Award. When you add brilliance, innovation, and an unwavering dedication to social, economic, racial, and environmental justice to that commitment, you can understand why we all owe Milton Davis, James Fletcher, Ron Gwinsky, and Mary Houghton a debt of gratitude. Not only were they the successful founders of ShoreBank, but they also were the catalyst for what became CDFI's and Opportunity Finance Movement. This was certainly true for me. 40 years ago, back in 1983, long before the acronym CDFI was even a thing, I began my career as one of the first employees at Self-Help. We like to call ourselves the first statewide community development bank, but much of that was driven out of our admiration for the real godfathers and godmothers of this industry, the folks at ShoreBank, and our desire to build upon what they were doing in Chicago. And we were in good company across the country, eventually across the globe. People were paying attention to their work, seeking to replicate this radical idea that the banking system could actually be harnessed and lift up under-resourced people and places. Among those who saw the power of their work was a little-known governor in Arkansas who recruited them to bring their model to his state, which they did by helping to create the Good Faith Fund and Southern Development Bank. And when he ran for president in 1983, a central part of his platform was to create a national network of 100 community development banks and 1,000 microenterprise loan funds. Today, the CDFI fund and all the resources that have followed, new market tax credits, the greenhouse gas reduction fund carve-out, the SSBCI, and so many other programs that combine capital and purpose are a direct result of their work. On a personal level, my career has been inspired and shaped by their work. Maria, your dad, and Milton Davis were role models for me and so many others who did not see very many people who look like me in the finance industry, much less in senior decision-making positions. When I moved from North Carolina to Mississippi, it was ShoreBank Advisory Services that drafted the conceptual design for what became the Enterprise Corporation Delta and today Hope. And Mary Houghton was on my founding board of directors. I've learned so much from listening to Ron's wisdom and serving with him on the CFED Prosperity Now board. I remember him speaking at a conference once and responding to a series of complex questions with a simple, "It depends." And for some reason, that simple, profound wisdom gave me license to push back on conventional wisdoms and resonated and has stayed with me over the years. Just before the pandemic, when Mary, for all rights, could have been relaxing on a lake, which she likes to do, instead asked me to join an effort to pull together a group of the country's most active Black business lenders and show to the world that if adequately capitalized, we could significantly increase our lending and close the racial wealth gap. 3 years later, all of these organizations have more than doubled our balance sheets and are lending to entrepreneurs of color. Folks, ShoreBank is the gift that continues to give, and their founders were incredible people that we all owe a debt of gratitude. I now know what Bill Clinton knew. You should never say no to Mary Houghton. There are so many of us who are direct descendants of ShoreBank, Southern Development Bank Corporation, the Grameen Bank, the CDFI Fund, ShoreBank Pacific, Beneficial Bank, BRAC, Craft 3, the Center for Community Change, Enterprise, the Community Reinvestment Act, Women's Self-Employment Project, AEO, EcoTrust, EcoTrust Canada, Prosperity Now, CFED. You get my drift? And Hope Enterprise Corporation and Hope Credit Union. We all have their work in our DNA. Their humble, generous, brilliant, dedicated, disciplined commitment has transformed lives and has indeed changed the world. I could not be more deeply honored than I am today to introduce Mary Houghton, Jim Fletcher's daughter, Maria Barksdale, and Ron Gwinswinsky, the founders of ShoreBank and long overdue recipients of the Ned Gramlich Award.
Please be seated. So obviously, thank you, Opportunity Finance Network. We are overjoyed to be here today. So this award recognizes a kind of a strange animal, a 4-person management committee that operated as a single executive team to run an institution for more than 30 years. We did it because we were aligned in our values. We had deep mutual respect for each other, but we challenged each other all the time. And we had complementary skills. Ron was the banker and the person who could sell capital into the capital markets. Milton Davis had a very long view on racial issues in this country and was uniquely able to balance the tough decisions when you had to be balancing racial and business inputs. Jim Fletcher was the deal maker. And me, I was just this young person who I always wanted to do the next new thing, as George Surgeon will confirm. One day, I got a loan approved to a new small business, and George, who handled risk management, put it on the watch list on the day that the loan was approved. And I'm sure that if the people who worked at ShoreBank, of which there are very many over there in that corner, they would all have a different take on what were our strengths and weaknesses. And they might say there were a few more weaknesses than I just acknowledged. So we all got together in the late 60s at the Hyde Park Bank in the University of Chicago neighborhood to run one of the country's first minority small business loan programs. We learned how to make SBA loans. SBA was just discovering the fact that they made 7A loans at that time. And at the end of the day, we would go to the Eagle Bar and we would talk about what had happened that day, what we were going to do the next day, and what could we do next that was a big idea. We were encountering strong demand at the Hyde Park Bank, so we knew there was a big market out there. And we did get a big idea, which was to try to buy a bank, and we picked the neighborhood of South Shore. South Shore had changed very rapidly racially from 100% white to 95% black in just a few years. But it's a beautiful neighborhood on the lake, on the south side of Chicago, close to downtown. And so we got going, and then we just kept working, and we succeeded. So in preparing what I was ever going to say, I came across the tape that was made when our colleague John Burtis got this award in 2017. He got it posthumously, but fortunately Craft 3 had made a tape of him, And I thought that what he said is really the core of being a CDFI. So I'm going to just read it to you. He said, innovation always represents risk. Most capital markets avoid risk at all costs. We at Craft 3 underwrite risk and take reasonable risks with entrepreneurs and help finance a process of change by being welcoming to risk. In the process of assessing risk, we look at all the same things that any investor does, but we often come up with a different answer, a different responsible answer, which is yes. What we really do well is capital. Capital has something good for people in a community. Our core competency is risk management. Our ability to take and manage risk at a 99% success rate. That's the engine for using capital as a change agent. Clear, simple words, and it is what everybody wants to know when they meet you. How do you do what you do? Are you doing something different? Well, no, you're not doing something different. You're doing it with a different mindset to make a deal. So those 4 tables that yelled over there, they're the folks from Craft 3 on the West Coast. Northern Initiatives in the state of Michigan. Southern Bancorp in Arkansas. And a wide variety of people who are working in other companies now. So today we're honoring 4 people. Milton Davis's daughter, Shelley, was unable to come, but I'd like to now introduce you to Maria Barksdale, Jim Fletcher's daughter.
So I'd like to start by thanking OFN on behalf of my father, James Fletcher, and the entire Fletcher family for this distinction in recognition of the groundbreaking work of ShoreBank. All of you have entered into this work because of your passion for people, justice, and change. My father shared that passion and was intensely committed to the things that he felt passionate about. He cared deeply about seeing change in underserved communities, and so he joined a team of others who shared that same commitment, and ShoreBank was born. As a member of this team, among the long list of worthy accomplishments, he helped finance the first African-American McDonald's owner-operators in the country. The story goes like this, or so Mary told me. After the riots in the late 60s and the effects of the civil rights movement, McDonald knew it was essential to promote and support African-American operators, particularly in big cities. In December of 1968, it sold a franchise to Herman Petty, who with 2 other investors bought the McDonald's at 67th and Stony Island in Chicago. When my father joined Hyde Park Bank the next year in 1969, where he and Milton Davis and Ron Grzywinski and Mary Houghton first worked together, there were requests for bank loans, and doing these deals became his focus. He sometimes put together creative pieces to make a bank loan possible, a guarantee from the Small Business Administration and an equity investment from the minority-focused equity fund that they had created. They were hard deals to make, but he loved making them happen. By the end of 1969, McDonald's had 12 African-American franchises in several cities. Dad had made many loans to Herman Petty and others at Hyde Park Bank and then later ShoreBank. In 1972, Herman Petty formed the National Trade Association of Black McDonald Owners, called the National Black McDonald's Operators of America, and the rest is history. In the end, Dad had assisted with the finances of half of its 12 founding members. As discussed, my father believed in the mission of ShoreBank, but he was also passionate about the ShoreBank family. For years, every Christmas, we hosted a holiday party in our home. These were not catered affairs, but celebrations of the heart. Dad cooked large and lavish meals for dozens of the members of the ShoreBank family. Cooking was another passion of his, and many people fondly remember these meals, particularly the ribs, which no matter what the menu was, he made them, and it didn't matter what the temperature was outside either. I'm not sure what Dad would have done with his passion to help others and to share with others if he hadn't come across the likes of Mary and Ron and his good friend Milton Davis. I know that I'm glad that he did, and I know that there are many others who are grateful for this dynamic foursome who pioneered community development banking. And again, I appreciate this recognition of their work.
Well, hello everybody. This is my speech. A little less formal than my colleagues, but I'm really here to thank you, to thank everybody here in the audience and everybody in this industry who's done all this work and made all this possible. Without you and the work that you're doing, none of this would happen. I have to also acknowledge, as I did once before at an earlier OFN conference, that when Bill Clinton had announced that he was going to create 100 South Shore banks around the country, there were a group of loan funds around the country who were our depositors. They were our customers. They were our friends. And they wanted the legislation broadened to include not-for-profit organizations. And I fiercely disagreed with them, okay? I was wrong. I disagreed with them because I could not see the way that they would become self-sustaining. I had no faith that government or banks would do what they have subsequently done and what you have done also. So I want to just admit that and acknowledge it. What I did not recognize, what I did not appreciate, is the passion, the enthusiasm, the people who do this work in not-for-profit organizations and even for-profit organizations, the passion that you all have, we all have, to get this work done. Too many bankers don't have that passion. For them, it's a job. Okay? I want to do one other thing about doing a little thinking before I get down into what I really want to say. Yeah, you might throw me out of here when I'm done with that. I want to specifically, and this is dangerous, and I know it's dangerous, but I'm going to thank one other person by name who, if he was 10 years younger, would have been up here with us. George. Stand up and take a hand. Not only has George made sure that we've more or less obeyed all the rules and stayed on the straight and narrow, but he also went down to Arkansas and lived there for 8 years to get that organization started, which now is being run by people from Arkansas. The organization is just doing a fantastic job today, and several people are here, and we're delighted. So thank you very much. There's a clock here that's showing that in 6 minutes and 59 seconds, the roof is going to fall in if I don't finish. I'm not joking. Anyway, what I want to, and this is, nobody from OFN even knows that I'm going to say this, okay? But what I want to acknowledge all the good work that the banks have done, the financing that the banks have done of the CDFI industry, and the growth and results of the CDFIs, not only the organizations that are in the audience right now, but around the country. But I also want to say that, in my opinion, it is not enough, okay? It is not nearly enough. I personally, I personally hate the notion of using philanthropy as part of the description of what CDFIs do. It might come out of budgets that are called philanthropy, but what CDFIs do is finance survival, growth, opportunity, justice, okay? By no stretch of imagination, or at least my imagination, that is not philanthropy. That is justice, okay? That is what we have to do together. I think CDFIs have now become so professional, so well recognized, that they ought to be genuine partners, not the way partners is used today. If somebody makes you a loan and you have to obey all the terms of the loans, but people who are working together, organizations that are working together, having joint responsibility for the results that are turned out. The CDFI industry, in my opinion, can now go to its next step. And I know that Harold doesn't have nearly enough work to do in his new job. But I think it's worth thinking about what can be done in terms of helping CDFIs to become more professional, to be trained. I mean, we ought to have even a certified program in this country in which people at different layers can learn different expertise, okay, and do it well. And I can imagine that possibly being funded philanthropically. But I think that the banks have to step up and with us recognize what has to be done. The work that needs to be done is not just a line item on a budget. It's solving problems. It's creating opportunities for people in neighborhoods and communities and reservations. It ought to become everybody's job. And the reason banks, I believe, ought to be singled out is because, as the bank robber Willie Sutton said, when asked the question, why do you rob banks, it's because, he said, because that's where the money is, okay? The other way of looking at that is that the Federal Reserve also, back in 1972, the Federal Reserve recognized that bank holding companies possess a unique combination, that's their word, not mine, that's theirs, a unique combination of managerial and financial resources with which to deal with a number of the nation's social ills. Okay? That's pretty tough language, okay? And when you think about it, bank holding companies, as you might know, are the corporations, regulated corporations, all of them regulated by the Fed, that oversees, that essentially own the banks that we all know. And so the potential is there, the management potential is there, the money is there, the capital is there. There is so much more that bank holding companies can do as a percentage of the knowledge that they have, as a percentage of the capital and deposits that they have. And so I would just urge that there be much closer working together. Not that one of them, the CDFIs, are the junior partners, but rather are the equal partners. It's a challenge for all of us, okay, to build a stronger nation, to build stronger opportunities for people to do things. I think the last part that I want to say about all of this is that to recognize that in addition to that unique combination, it's where the banks have the resources they have because they are the custodians of our money, okay? Justice Brandeis, who was a justice of the Supreme Court, but before that worked in what today would be called economic development, once said in an opinion that people have long desired to own the goose that lays the golden egg. But the banks want to own the golden eggs laid by somebody else's goose. Okay? The banks are managing other people's money. They're managing my money, your money, okay? And we have a call on them. And I think it's time to push the pedal a little bit harder and enter into genuine partnerships, okay? They can do it. It can be done. You can all do it. And I think I better end with that because I've got 21 seconds left, and the clock is moving fast. So thank you all. Thank you, everybody. It's been a real pleasure, and appreciate it. Thank you.